Welcome back to my humble channel. Today I'm going to be talking about why travel kind of sucks. I mean, don't get me wrong, obviously I love travel. It's amazing, life-changing, empowering, etc., etc., etc. But you have to agree that there is definitely a lot of downsides to travel, and sometimes it doesn't really get talked about, and I feel like it should be a little bit more open that travel does suck in a lot of ways. On social media, you always see the highlight reel, but it's not always beautiful hotel rooms and amazing churches and all of the fun stuff. There's definitely downsides, and I want to talk about that. I have about 8 or so reasons why travel sucks. Let's go ahead and just get into it. Number one, definitely the worst thing about travel is that it can get really expensive. It definitely has a high cost. Maybe you're a little bit luckier than I am and you have that money to spend, but I definitely have to budget a lot on my trips. And I spend money on more attractions than I do on like food or accommodations. And you just have to kind of prioritize what you spend your money on, which just isn't in the budget. At least I'm not prioritizing it on this trip. It really does add up though, even when you budget, especially if you are flying or renting a car or going to a city that's more expensive. But it's definitely worth it, that money that you spend to see the world, and I highly suggest saving up some money so you can travel if you haven't already, because it is just an amazing experience. Oh wait, we're supposed to be talking about the downsides. So downside number 2 is when unexpected problems pop up, which is kind of bound to happen, especially if you travel a lot, whether it's a travel delay or a missed flight, or like me, we had car problems with our rental in Scotland and we ended up kind of wasting a day running around trying to get that fixed. Yeah, our car's having problems. We're not able to drive because I guess the power steering and stuff's not working. I don't know exactly, but Dad couldn't get it to work. There's always something that ends up going wrong, and you just have to brainstorm, problem solve, and figure it out. Be quick on your feet, and also just kind of go with the flow and just figure it out. Don't let it dampen your trip, because yeah, things are gonna go wrong at some point, but you have to push through and just make the most of it and do what needs to be done to continue your trip. The third thing that kind of goes wrong with travel is weather. Sometimes it just doesn't cooperate and you don't get the best weather. Maybe it rains, or it's too cold or too hot. It's so cold though, my glasses are like frozen. I'm gonna go back to the car before I get like frostbite. Or maybe if you're a photographer like me, the lighting isn't the way you want it for a certain photo, and you just kind of have to deal with that weather. The best thing to do is to research ahead of time and see what the weather, the climate, all of that is gonna be like when you travel. And it really depends on the season, of course. Is it gonna be rainy season, dry season, summer, winter, whatever? Make sure you just look it up, figure out the temperatures, maybe watch some vlogs that are during that time so you can kind of see what to wear. Make sure you are prepared when you pack. Bring umbrellas, long sleeves, jackets, sunscreen, hats, whatever the weather is going to be, you have to be prepared for it. And if it does end up being rainy, be prepared to just go out in the rain and still see the sights and do the stuff, because you can't just sit around when it's raining. You want to still go out and see it. You don't want to waste time. So kind of just, again, roll with it and make the most of the bad weather. Fourth thing on my list is FOMO, and that is the fear of missing out. It can really hit you when you travel, especially if you're going to a new city you've never been before. You want to see all the things, do all the things, eat all the food, and you're not gonna have enough time unless you stay in a city for a couple of weeks. So just plan on maybe coming back. I definitely want to come back to Barcelona because I know there's a lot of stuff I'm missing out on this trip, either because I don't want to budget for it or it's just too out of the way. And always prioritize the top things. So kind of figure out what are the main attractions that you want to see, the main local dishes you want to try, and work those into your itinerary, because yeah, you're gonna miss out on some stuff and you just have to accept that and plan another trip. And along with that FOMO and running around comes tiredness. Very, very tired. Traveling is very tiring, of course, and I tend to not sleep very well too on trips because my mind is just going and going about all the stuff I'm going to do the next day, what I'm going to say to the camera while I'm vlogging, all of that, and it can be really tiring. What I suggest is making time in your itinerary for resting. Maybe, you know, midday, go back to your apartment or hotel or whatever for lunch and take a nap, relax for a little bit before you go back out again, because then you can recharge and you won't be as tired. Try to go to bed at a decent time and wake up at a decent time as well and kind of be on a good schedule. That kind of goes with the FOMO as well. Like I said, you're going to be tired because you're trying to wake up early to catch the sunrise, but always just kind of schedule some time to relax, maybe sit in a park for a while, that kind of thing. The sixth thing on my list is when things don't meet the hype. And this is definitely one of the worst things about travel. Maybe you get to a location and it just doesn't meet your expectations. There's a ton of tourist crowds, or the light just doesn't hit the waterfall the way it does in all the photos you've seen, and the place is maybe just not as pretty as you expected, but it's so crowded, so many people. Whatever it may be, sometimes it just doesn't meet your expectations no matter how much research you do, and you just kind of get this feeling of disappointment. I know it sucks. It definitely has happened to me before. For instance, when we are in Iceland, we hiked to a hot spring and it was a disappointment. The hike was way harder than I thought. Like, you could do the research, find out how long it is, but then once you're actually there doing the hike, and it was so steep and long, it was very tiring, the worst hike I've ever done. And then the hot springs weren't even worth it. We ended up going on a really windy and cold day, and the water was just warm. It wasn't really that hot, and it just wasn't the greatest experience, and I didn't really end up vlogging it either because I was disappointed in it and I was just kind of angry that day. I pretty much hated every moment of the hike, and the hot spring once we got there wasn't the best, but it is what it is. Sometimes not all the experiences you have while traveling are great or meet that hype that you've built up in your mind, and that's definitely one of the worst things about travel. I did end up buying a ticket for this. I thought it was hopefully worth it, but I would say not really that worth it for the money. If you're on a budget, I would skip it. Next is homesickness, especially if you are gone for a longer period of time. I always get homesick, especially when I travel alone and it's just me. I miss my parents, I miss my bed, my pets, all of that. Homesickness can definitely really hit you, especially towards the end of the trip. I am at the point definitely where I'm a little homesick. I'm looking forward to being back home with seeing my parents, my pets, my bed, being able to just fully chill. But you just have to remind yourself about how lucky you are that you are in a beautiful place, traveling, seeing the world. And also, I've got to say that actually being sick really sucks as well. Dad and I both tested positive for COVID. There have been a few times where I've been sick on a trip, like my last one when my mom and I were in Prague. We both had really bad colds and we were just very snotty. Our ears were clogged up and it wasn't the greatest situation, but we just kind of persevered. We got some medicine at a local pharmacy, which kind of helped, and we just continued to do our trip as planned. And even though we were sick and kind of miserable at times, we still had a great time, and you just have to be prepared for that. Maybe pack some basic medicine so you're ready in case any sickness hits. Obviously, make sure you are washing your hands, using hand sanitizer, maybe get some vitamin C related pills or foods, and just be prepared for the possibility of being sick, especially like a cold or something, and hope that you also don't get like food poisoning, anything like that. It can happen on a trip, so just be prepared. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is another of the worst parts of travel, and that is air travel. I like flying to an extent. I like more the concept of flying than the actual flying itself. I like looking out the window and seeing all the pretty cloud formations and the world passing by, but otherwise air travel really sucks, especially if you're going on long haul flights across the Atlantic or Pacific, and it just takes forever. You have jet lag, those stupid layovers, the feeling of no sense of time in the airport or on the airplane, like what even is time? And the airline meals usually aren't that great. Unless you're in first class or business class, you're gonna be uncomfortable, it's hard to sleep. So yeah, I could go on and on about why air travel sucks, but it's just a means to an end. Sometimes the journey is not as good as the destination, and air travel is great because, I mean, you get to go anywhere in the world. So that's definitely amazing. Those are all of my reasons why travel sucks. Of course, travel is also amazing, and I could go on and on about why I love it so much. Go ahead in the comments, put your worst thing about travel and maybe some tips to avoid some of these bad things. And I will see you next time. My next video is going to be about solo travel, and I'm excited to talk about that. And I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe too. Okay, bye.